Hey everybody, today we're going to be talking about the formats on MTG Arena and ranking which one of them are best for new and returning players. Now, Magic is a lot of different games to a lot of different type of players, right? And so the best word is very subjective. What I'm going to focus on are formats that are easy to get into, accessible, cost-efficient formats that are not going to break the bank in terms of wild cards, gems, and coins that anyone can pick up and play as a free-to-play player. I've been free-to-play for many years now on Arena. I've built up a lot of wild cards and a lot of gems, but I'm going back and I'm teaching my daughter how to play Magic, and so she's starting with a new profile and very little in terms of gems and resources that she can use as a free-to-play player. So these rankings are my own personal opinion. If a format that you enjoy does not get ranked high, I am not saying anything bad about the format. There are important reasons why some formats, specifically older formats that have a lot of older cards, have some barrier to entry, right? To make sure that people are serious when they're playing those specific formats. But we're going to talk about a newer player journey right now, and so I hope you are with me for that ride, right? And so first we're going to start with the starter deck duel. This is a format that I see too many newer players skip over. These are 10 two-color decks that are meant to be played against each other and teaches the general outline of what an archetype for those two colors can be. Doesn't mean it's the only archetype for those two colors, but it certainly shows you what those two colors can do and some of the mechanics around those two colors. I think it's an absolute fun format. I still play it myself as an established player. I like that the Foundations cards are very easy to teach, and hopefully that means easy to learn for a newer player, but they're also exciting, right? My favorite is the Blue-White Flyers deck. I think there's a lot of tempo elements to it. I think it really is easy to teach new players how to attack and block. I really like that deck, and in fact I actually like most of the decks there. I'm actually coming out with a new video on the blue-red deck that is a lot of fun, but not necessarily the highest win rate deck. But anyway, I think starter deck is an absolute must of a format if you are a new or returning player to Magic or Magic Arena specifically, and so I'm going to give that an S tier. Another overlooked format is the bot matches. So in Magic Arena, for players, and this is specifically for newer players, players that need a little bit more hand-holding along their journey. If you have done with the color challenges, you can play individual matches against the computer before you have to go out there and play against real players, right? There is some stress specifically about playing against real players when you are so maybe shaky with the command of the deck that you have. If you're still reading your own cards and you're thinking you're going to cause inconvenience for other players because of how slow you're going to play, these bot matches are really important for you. That being said, they're not really important for most new players. After playing these bot matches for 3 or 4 times, you will probably look to move on to real life matches. In the color challenge, I believe each color challenge has 4 bot matches, and then the 5th match is a match against a real player. That's where the real fun and interaction in Magic begins. So I can't rank this one too highly, but if you are a brand new player, please don't skip it. For that reason, I'm going to rank it a C. So the next format we're going to talk about is the jump into the set format. So this is something like jump into Final Fantasy that's currently running right now. For 1,000 gold, you get 2 20-card like half decks, like the old theme decks, and you push them together. You have a choice of 3 and then another choice of 3 that complement the colors that you pick. These are really fun, and they're also a great way to build your collection of cards. On Magic Arena, 1,000 gold can get you one pack, or it can get you this jump-in deck, which will be 40 cards ready to play. You can play it as many times as you'd like, and if you'd like to kind of get a new deck and reshuffle those choices, it only costs another 1,000 gold. So for that reason, the set jump into format is very high on my list. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the A category. That brings us to the regular jump in set. Now, this set would be that high on my list, although it pales in comparison to the jump in set of the current set. This is the jump in for each set that is in standard. So usually there are 4 to 5 jump in sets, and so instead of having 10 decks to explore, you have 50 different choices, of which you get 3 and pick 1. So there's a lot more choices available, a lot more decks to put together and to explore the format. If you are having a great time in the jump in set format and you want to widen that up, this is a great set for you. For me, I think the choices may be a little too overwhelming because every opponent that you have will have set mechanics from all the different sets in standard. So I can't recommend this as highly as the jump in that is only focused on the current set. For that reason, I'm going to go ahead and bring this into a C category. Next is standard. This is the most popular format and in a lot of ways the bellwether of Magic the Gathering. This is the premier play format and the format that most people aspire to play. The downside to standard is it does take a lot of wild cards depending on how you are building your deck. There are deck tutorials out there that are talking about specifically decks that use a lot more common and uncommon cards. Usually there's a mono red deck that uses less wild cards, less rares and mythics than some of the other decks. I have a video on a Raise the Past deck right now that uses not as many rare and mythic rare wild cards. And what's important here is to remember rotation for your standard decks. Using Foundations cards is amazing because these cards are going to be in standard till at least 2029. And so if it takes you a while to build a deck, you will have this deck ready to go for quite a while. The Raise the Past deck specifically, Raise the Past the card, is in Foundations, and so are several of the other pieces. And so if you build a deck similar to that, you know that you will have this deck available for quite a long time. Some people complain about the lack of diversity in standard. What ends up happening is usually standard is wide open at the beginning of the format, and as people gravitate towards what is the exact best deck, the diversity of the format shrinks down. If it shrinks down too much, then Wizards puts emergency bans into place to make sure that cards are coming out of that format so that we open up a little bit more diversity. But what's really important for maybe a more casual player like myself, this is the format that I'm playing after work, not quite ready to go to bed. I'm sitting on the couch. I got 20 minutes. I want to play 4 or 5 games. I want to do my daily quests to get the gold for the daily quests. I'm just going to pop into best of 1 standard and play a couple of games. If I play against 2 or 3 of the same deck, I'm not necessarily overly worried about it because I'm not spending 45 minutes in a best of 3 matchup where I'm scrutinizing every single decision. I'm playing on the couch, I'm having a fun time, and I'm playing standard that way. So I would rank this as an A format. It is aspirational for some. If you're a brand new player and you have no wild cards at all, it may take you 4 to 6 months to put together your first standard deck. And so it's not something that you're going to get right away in some cases. But it's a lot of fun, and I think you should definitely watch some videos about Standard and make sure that you're definitely sure on the type of deck that you want to build if this is going to be your first build. Next up is Alchemy, and what separates Alchemy from some of the other formats are Alchemy has digital only cards that do things that can't be done in paper. So it could be something like deal damage to a random creature. It could be seek a card. Seek a card is theoretically looking through your deck, finding a card, putting it into your hand, but it doesn't change the order of the deck. It's not specifically shuffling the deck. It's not taking a card out of the deck. It's creating a card and putting it either in your hand or in the deck. So it's doing some random things that you would not be able to do otherwise in paper cards. If you found your way to Magic through a card game that had more random mechanics, like Hearthstone, this is a format that may be perfect for you. This is more random, more big swings. Wizards takes a little bit more chances here with Alchemy. It is fun, and a lot of the cards do powerful things, but for newer players, there's a lot of reading involved, and if you're not really sure on every mechanic, it may be a little overwhelming for you. So for the overwhelming aspect of it, I will have to put it in the C category, although if this is something that if you're from Hearthstone, if you're from some of these other TCG games, specifically the digital ones, and you love that digital aspect of being able to do something that's really outside the box, then I could see this ranking much higher for you. In fact, I could see this actually being the format that is the pinnacle for you, and that's what you're really aiming for, like most people are aiming for Standard. So you know what, I think I talked myself into a B category for that reason, and it really depends on your player background on whether this is a B or C category for you. Historic is a format that has a wider card pool, and when you have a wider card pool that is comprised of more sets, it generally tends to make more powerful decks, but those powerful decks usually have more wildcard requirements to it. There are some decks, like specifically the Arclight Phoenix deck, that doesn't use quite as many rare and mythic rare wildcards as some of the other decks in the format, but because we're talking about specifically new and returning players, this is a harder one to get into. Most players start with Standard, and then as that Standard deck rotates out, they have now an older card collection, and they bring that into a non-rotating format that's going to keep going and build stronger and stronger decks along the way. So much like Alchemy, it's not for everyone, but for those who like the older cards and having a deck that you're not going to rotate every 2 years, it may be a format for you. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in a B category. Next up is Pioneer. And so Pioneer is meant to recreate the format from Paper Magic. So you won't have any rebalancing here like you will have in Historic. You will see the same competitive decks that are in Paper. It's not a one-for-one conversion. Not every single card is legal in Pioneer, but a vast majority of them are. Again, much like Historic, this is a wider format that is played by a lot of people in Paper, and so it may be aspirational for some. For me, again, it's just a little bit too wide of a format for beginners, and so I will go ahead and rank it here on C. Timeless is very similar. Again, just a wider format, more cards available. I believe it's everything that's on MTG Arena other than specific cards that have been pre-banned out of it. And so while it is aspirational and If you are into Timeless, I'm sure it's a fun format to be playing. It is very daunting as a new player to start thinking about Timeless, so I'm going to go ahead and put it in the C category. Next up is Sealed. Now, Sealed is a limited format where you are opening 6 packs and you're building a 40-card deck with just what was in a 6-pack set of cards, and then you're playing it against other players that are doing the same. This format really teaches deck building because you're going to have to be making choices along the way. It is usually slower and more methodical than a draft format because of the randomness of the packs that you're getting. There's a lot more splashing of a third color. There's a lot more 7 and 8 drops that you'll find in Sealed compared to draft, where those strategies that rely on really expensive cards may get run over by faster aggro decks. Sealed is a fun format to play. I'm going to go ahead and give it a B tier. And that brings us to draft, right? And draft is opening up. You'll open up a total of 3 packs, but you'll open up a pack one at a time. You'll take 1 card out of that pack and pass it to the person on your left. Then you'll get the person on your right pack, and you'll pick 1 card from that. And it'll keep going until you have a pool of cards that you make a 40-card deck with. This is a lot of fun, and some players, this is the only way they interact with Magic. It is self-correcting, and so while you may feel that a standard or a constructed format gets stale after a while, usually that doesn't happen to most draft formats, because if green is the best color and everybody overdrafts green, then the best color is red because everybody else is taking green cards, and on an 8-person table, you may have 5 or 6 green drafters, and then everything else becomes open, and then those become the best deck. Quick Draft costs 5,000 coins on Magic Arena, and if you do your daily goals, you can generally average about 1,000 or 800 gold per day. And so if you're doing your daily goals every single day, you should be able to do at least 1 quick draft per week if you decide to spend your gold that way. And as a free-to-play player, that's how I interacted with draft for quite a while. Quick Draft is also really good for new players because you can spend the time looking and reading at the cards. You don't have the pressure of the timed element like you do in a Premier Draft, so you can really spend the time crafting the deck you want. I give this format a very high rating. I'm going to say it's an A format. In terms of fun, in terms of replayability, this is an S all the way. This is a top tier format. And the only reason I'm going to lower it to an A is because it could be overwhelming for new players. This is an aspirational format, much like Standard is the standard bearer for constructed formats. Draft is generally thought of as the standard bearer for limited formats. And then the last format I'm going to mention is Brawl. Now, Brawl is a constructed 100-card singleton format, and it's a bit... my rating may be a bit divisive here, right? I am rating this on how easy it is for a new player to get into. And Brawl decks, specifically highly tuned Brawl decks, are just going to eat up a large number of rare and mythic rare wild cards. I'm sure there are some budget Brawl decks. This is not a format that I interact with regularly. I am sure it is fun. Commander is a multiplayer format with the same kind of deck construction elements. And Commander is one of the top formats. I believe it's the top played format right now in Magic the Gathering as a whole. So I have no doubt that Brawl is fun. I just don't think that newer players can really have building a top tier Brawl deck on their mind for the first couple of months of play. I said that standard deck may take 3 to 4 months to kind of get the wild cards to build together and make sure that you have a deck that you want to play. I think Brawl is clearly going to take you longer than that. I think a path into Brawl, if that's something you're interested in, is playing the same couple of colors, whether it's 2 or 3 colors, right? So if you played blue-white in this standard format, and after rotation you play blue-white in the next standard format, and the rotation after that you play blue-white again, now all of a sudden you're getting quite a bit of the staples of Brawl in these 2 color combinations, and it becomes more accessible when you put a list together and you only need to use, say, 10 wildcards to finish the deck. If you put a list together and immediately it's going to take you 45 wildcards to create the deck, you really want to be super secure that this deck. You may have played it on paper, you may have played it from a friend's account, and you're going to have fun with this deck for a long time. So, I am not saying that Brawl is not fun. I am sure it's fun. All Magic is fun, right? This is a Magic the Gathering channel. I love Magic. I love interacting with Magic in any form. But Brawl is probably not the easiest new player, returning player, budget player format. So I'm going to put it in the C category. I think it's just a stretch to have newer players get into the Brawl format. So that brings us to the ranking of all the formats for newer players. No doubt starter deck is where most new players should be spending a decent amount of time learning the ropes, learning the archetypes, learning the mechanics of Magic the Gathering before they move on, and moving on to jump in, draft, and then eventually standard as you build up your collection seems like a great path to get you into these other formats that have larger card pools. Again, no shade towards Brawl at all. I hope everybody gets there in the end, but I do think that these 4 formats are where most new players should start. But this is one person's opinion, right? I would love to hear your opinion in the comments below. Let me know what formats you think I may have overrated, or some formats that you think I may have underrated. If you have budget-friendly deck lists for some of these formats, I would love to hear a Brawl deck list that is maybe a total of 15 or 20 rares, so that people could get into the format a little bit quicker. Maybe I'll even make a video playing it myself, right? Because again, I love all forms of Magic, and I would love to have another format to play as just this singleton format that I think could be really fun. So if you like content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel so that you can get the new videos that come out. I post at least twice a week, but usually 3 times a week, and I've really enjoyed posting on the channel. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.